I am Stephanie, 29 years old, and I never thought I would wake up bald the day before my sister Brittany's wedding. My hand trembled as it touched my scalp, finding only 2 inches of jaggedly cut hair where my long auburn locks used to be. My mother stood in the doorway, scissors in hand. Justice, she called it. My father nodded approvingly, adding, "Now, maybe someone will finally pity you instead of admiring you." The shock paralyzed me, but they had no idea what I would do next. If you are watching this, let me know where you are from in the comments, and hit that subscribe button, because this family betrayal story is about to take a turn they never saw coming. I had always been the black sheep in my family, though, on paper, I was the successful one. Working as a marketing executive at a prominent firm in Boston, I had carved out a life for myself through hard work and determination. My natural appearance had always been a point of contention in our household. I was blessed with clear skin, bright green eyes, and flowing auburn hair that cascaded down to my waist. That hair was my trademark, my crown, something I had nurtured and cared for since childhood. People often complimented it, which only seemed to deepen the rift between me and my family. My sister Brittany was different. She had always struggled with insecurity about her appearance. With mousy brown hair that never seemed to hold a style and a perpetual frown that had etched premature lines around her mouth, Brittany spent her life comparing herself to me. Instead of developing her own strengths, she fixated on what she perceived as her shortcomings. I tried to help her over the years, offering to take her shopping or to my stylist, but my efforts were always rebuffed as condescension. Our parents, Martha and Richard, never helped the situation. For as long as I could remember, they had favored Brittany. It was subtle at first, then became increasingly blatant as we grew older. When I turned 16, they gave me a used alarm clock and a lecture about responsibility. For Brittany's 16th, they bought her a car. When I graduated high school as valedictorian, they skipped the ceremony because Brittany had a minor cold. When Brittany barely graduated with a C average, they threw an extravagant party and invited extended family from across the country. I still remember my college acceptance letters arriving. I got into Yale with a partial scholarship, but my parents refused to contribute a dime toward my education. I heard my mother telling a friend on the phone, "Stephanie will be fine. She always lands on her feet." I worked 3 jobs while maintaining a 4-point GPA. Meanwhile, they fully funded Brittany through 5 years at a state college where she changed majors 4 times and barely passed her classes. Through it all, my Aunt Eleanor was my rock. My mother's sister saw the dynamics for what they were and provided the emotional support my parents withheld. She came to my graduation when my parents claimed they could not afford the trip, even though they had just returned from a European vacation with Brittany. Eleanor helped me find my first apartment and checked in regularly. She was the mother figure I desperately needed. Despite the clear favoritism, I tried to maintain a relationship with my family. I called weekly, sent thoughtful gifts for birthdays and holidays, and made efforts to connect with Brittany. Most of my attempts were met with cold politeness at best, open hostility at worst. Still, they were my family, and some part of me kept hoping for acceptance. 3 months before the wedding, I met Daniel, Brittany's fiancé, for the first time at a family dinner. He was surprisingly kind and seemed genuinely interested in my life and career. Throughout the evening, I noticed how he tensed whenever Brittany spoke sharply to the server or complained about trivial things. Several times he caught my eye after one of her outbursts, a look of discomfort crossing his face. I felt a twinge of concern, wondering if he truly knew what he was getting into. When the wedding invitation arrived, I was surprised to find a note asking me to be a bridesmaid. Brittany had 3 close friends from college, but apparently needed a 4th to balance the groomsmen. I suspected my parents had pressured her to include me. After some consideration, I accepted. Family is family, I told myself, and perhaps this could be a turning point in our relationship. I selected an appropriate bridesmaid dress, following all of Brittany's specifications. It was the exact shade of unflattering mauve she had chosen, with the prescribed modest neckline and length. I did nothing to customize or enhance it. Still, when I arrived for the pre-wedding dinner, the criticisms began immediately. "You always have to try to outshine the bride," my mother sniffed, as I entered carrying my overnight bag. I had worn simple jeans and a sweater for travel. "You could have at least tried to look presentable for the rehearsal dinner," Brittany added, though I was not yet dressed for the event. My father merely looked me up and down and sighed, as if my very existence was a disappointment. "I want this weekend to be perfect for your sister," he said. "Do not do anything to take attention away from her special day." I nodded, swallowing the hurt that still managed to surface, despite years of similar interactions. "I am just happy to be here to support Brittany," I replied, meaning it despite everything. The relationship might have been strained, but I truly wanted my sister to find happiness. Little did I know what the night would bring, or how my life would change by morning. The rehearsal dinner that evening was an exercise in restraint. Held at an upscale restaurant downtown, it brought together the wedding party and close family members. I arrived in a simple black cocktail dress, minimal makeup, and my hair pulled back in a modest bun. Despite my efforts to blend into the background, I could feel my mother's disapproving gaze following me throughout the night. When we were seated, I found myself at the far end of the table, separated from the other bridesmaids, Lauren and Emily, who clustered around Brittany. Daniel occasionally glanced my way with a sympathetic smile. He attempted to include me in conversation several times, only to be interrupted by Brittany tugging at his arm, or my mother interjecting with a story about Brittany's accomplishments. The atmosphere grew increasingly tense when the maid of honor toasted Brittany, mentioning how beautiful she would look tomorrow. Brittany immediately teared up. "I am so stressed about everything," she wailed, drawing all attention to herself. "What if the flowers are wrong? What if I trip walking down the aisle? What if I do not look beautiful enough?" My father immediately moved to comfort her. "Princess, you will be the most beautiful bride anyone has ever seen," he assured her, patting her hand. "No one will be looking at anything but you." His eyes darted toward me briefly, a warning clear in his gaze. I attempted to diffuse the tension. "Your dress is absolutely stunning, Brittany," I said sincerely. "You are going to look amazing." Instead of accepting the compliment, Brittany's face darkened. "Easy for you to say," she snapped. "Everything looks good on you. You are trying to compete with me even now." My mother nodded in agreement. "Stephanie, please, can you let your sister have just one day without making it about yourself?" I fell silent, picking at my food for the remainder of the dinner. When we returned to my parents' house where I was staying for the weekend, I excused myself early, claiming travel fatigue. In reality, I needed escape from the emotional minefield. As I prepared for bed in my childhood room, now stripped of any evidence I had ever lived there, and converted into a generic guest room, I could hear raised voices from downstairs. Curiosity drew me to the hallway where the sound traveled clearly up the stairs. "It is not fair," Brittany was sobbing. "She is going to ruin everything just by being there. She always has to be the pretty one, the special one. Everyone will be looking at her instead of me at my own wedding." "Your sister would never intentionally steal your spotlight," I heard my father say, though his tone lacked conviction. "Wouldn't she?" my mother responded bitterly. "She has always been self-centered. Remember how she insisted on applying to those fancy schools when she knew we could not afford it, how she always had to get perfect grades and make the rest of us look bad. She is going to show up with that perfect hair of hers and that face, and everyone will be whispering about why Daniel did not marry her. Instead," Brittany wailed. My heart sank as I listened. Was this truly how they saw me? As someone deliberately trying to outshine my sister rather than simply living my life? I retreated to my room, locking the door behind me. Exhausted from travel and emotional strain, I fell into a troubled sleep. I awoke to a strange sensation. Something felt different wrong. My head felt lighter, cooler. I reached up groggily, expecting to feel my hair spread across the pillow. My hand touched my scalp, finding short, jagged tufts where my long locks should have been. For a moment I thought I was dreaming. I sat up fully awake now, hands frantically exploring my head from all angles. Everywhere my fingers found only stubble, or short, unevenly cut chunks of hair. I stumbled to the mirror on the wall, flipping on the light switch with shaking fingers. The reflection that stared back was almost unrecognizable. My beautiful auburn hair, which had hung past my waist just hours before, was gone. In its place was a haphazard, choppy mess, barely 2 inches long in some places, shorter in others. It looked as though someone had taken garden shears to my head, with vengeful abandon. In shock, I turned to the small trash can beside the desk. There, stuffed carelessly inside, were the severed locks of my hair, some still bound in the loose braid I had worn to sleep. The horror of realization washed over me. This was no accident, no strange dream. Someone had deliberately cut my hair while I slept, and there was only one explanation that made sense. I threw on a robe and rushed downstairs, my legs barely supporting me. In the kitchen, I found my parents and Brittany sitting calmly at the breakfast table, sipping coffee as if nothing was amiss. When they saw me, my mother's expression remained impassive. My father glanced up, then returned to his newspaper. Only Brittany showed a reaction, a small smirk quickly hidden behind her coffee cup. "What have you done?" I whispered, my voice catching on the words. My mother set down her cup with deliberate slowness. "What needed to be done?" she replied coolly. "Your sister deserves one day where she is not overshadowed." I looked from her to my father, waiting for some sign of remorse, some acknowledgement of the violation they had committed. His eyes, when they met mine, held only cold satisfaction. "Now maybe someone will finally pity you instead of admiring you," he said. "It might be good for your character." The betrayal was so complete, so devastating, that I could not form words. These people who were supposed to love me unconditionally had violated me in my sleep, destroyed a part of my identity out of jealousy and spite. Brittany finally spoke, her voice syrupy with fake concern. "It is just hair, Stephanie. It will grow back. Eventually. And now everyone can focus on me tomorrow as they should." I backed away from them, these strangers wearing my parents' and sister's faces. I fled to the bathroom, locking the door behind me, and collapsed onto the floor. Only then did the tears come, hot and relentless. I pressed my hands over my mouth to muffle the sobs that tore from my throat. My phone buzzed from the pocket of my robe. A text from Aunt Eleanor. "Good morning, sweetheart. Just checking in before the big day. How are you holding up?" With trembling fingers I typed. "They cut my hair off while I slept. All of it. Mom, Dad, maybe Brittany too. I do not know what to do." Her response was immediate. "What I am calling you right now." I sat on the cold bathroom floor, my body shaking with silent sobs as I waited for Eleanor's call. When my phone vibrated, I answered immediately, trying to keep my voice low. "Stephanie, what do you mean they cut your hair?" Eleanor's voice was sharp with concern. Between hiccuping breaths, I explained what had happened. How I had gone to sleep with my long hair intact and woken to find it brutally chopped off. How my parents had coldly justified their actions as evening the playing field for Brittany's big day. "Those monsters," Eleanor hissed. "I am coming there right now." "No," I managed, wiping tears from my face. "No, that will only make things worse. I do not know what to do. I am supposed to be a bridesmaid tomorrow." "You need to leave that house immediately," Eleanor insisted. "Come stay with me. You cannot remain under the same roof as people who would violate you like this." The thought was tempting. To flee, to escape the toxic environment and never look back. But something inside me rebelled against being driven away. Why should I be the one to leave? Why should I give them the satisfaction of breaking me? I think I need to stay," I said slowly, an idea forming through the haze of pain. "Stephanie, you cannot be serious. After what they did?" I took a deep breath, feeling a strange calm settle over me. "They want me to run away and hide. They want me to be ugly and ashamed at Brittany's wedding. If I leave now, they win. I am not going to let that happen." A knock at the door interrupted our conversation. Stephanie, it was my mother's voice, artificially sweet. You need to come out now. We have bridesmaid duties to attend to. I will call you back, I whispered to Eleanor, then raised my voice. I will be out in a minute. I stood and faced the mirror again, truly examining what they had done to me. The cut was atrocious, uneven, and clearly done with household scissors rather than professional tools. There was no salvaging this without expert help. I pulled out my phone and searched for emergency hair appointments in the area. By some miracle, I found a salon with an opening that morning. I texted the details to Eleanor, who offered to pay for whatever treatment I needed. Then I splashed cold water on my face, straightened my shoulders, and opened the door. My mother stood there, Brittany hovering behind her with poorly concealed satisfaction on her face. "Oh, you look different," Brittany said, her voice dripping with false sympathy. "But maybe they can give you a little hat to wear for the ceremony." I ignored the jab. "I have an appointment at a salon in 30 minutes, I stated flatly. "I will meet you at the bridesmaids' lunch afterward." My mother frowned. "We do not have time for your vanity projects. There are decorations to finish, and—" I cut her off with a calm I did not feel. "I will be at the lunch. On time. Now, excuse me, I need to get dressed." I walked past them, back straight, and head high despite the cool air on my exposed neck. I could feel their eyes on me, probably expecting tears or a meltdown. I would not give them the satisfaction. At the salon, the stylist Victoria took one look at me and gasped. "Oh my God, what happened to you?" she exclaimed, guiding me immediately to a chair. I told her the truth, all of it. As I spoke, her expression shifted from shock to outrage to determination. "These people, your own family, did this to you," she confirmed gently, turning my head to examine the damage from all angles. I nodded, fighting back fresh tears. "Well," Victoria said, rolling up her sleeves, "we cannot give you back your length, but we are going to make you look so good they will regret ever touching your hair." For the next 2 hours, Victoria worked her magic, transforming the butchered mess into a stylish, sophisticated pixie cut. She added product to give it texture and taught me how to style it. As the chair spun to face the mirror, I caught my breath. The woman looking back at me was not diminished or pitiful. She looked edgy, confident, and unexpectedly striking. My eyes seemed larger, my cheekbones more prominent. "You look stunning," Victoria declared. "Different than before, but absolutely beautiful." Other clients and stylists had gathered, offering support and sharing their own stories of family betrayals. One woman had her mother try to sabotage her job interview by hiding her car keys. Another had a sister who spread rumors to drive away her boyfriend. Their stories strengthened my resolve. As Victoria finished styling my hair, I made a decision. This was not just about surviving the wedding with dignity intact. This was about standing up to years of emotional abuse and favoritism. This was about justice. I called my friend Natalie while still at the salon, filling her in on everything. "Those psychopaths," she breathed. "Tell me what you need. I will help you burn their house down. Metaphorically, of course. Mostly." I smiled for the first time that day. "I need you to help me expose them, without ruining the actual wedding." Together, Natalie and I formulated a plan. She would contact mutual friends who knew my family. I would document everything through discreet photos and recordings. We would create a digital trail that could not be denied or explained away. After leaving the salon, I went shopping. My bridesmaid dress could not be altered on such short notice, but I could accessorize. I found elegant earrings that complemented my newly exposed neck and ears. I purchased makeup that accentuated my features differently than before. I even bought a small decorative hair clip that added a touch of sparkle to my new style. Back in my car, I practiced what I would say when confronted. I rehearsed maintaining eye contact, speaking clearly and calmly. I prepared myself for the gaslighting that would inevitably come, the attempts to paint me as overreacting or attention-seeking. This was war, but I would fight it on my terms. with truth as my weapon and dignity as my armor. The morning of the wedding dawned bright and clear, a perfect day for a celebration of love. The irony was not lost on me as I prepared to face my family again. I had spent the night at a hotel, courtesy of Aunt Eleanor, giving myself space to strengthen my resolve and perfect my appearance. I arrived at the venue precisely on time, dressed casually, but impeccably, my new pixie cut styled to perfection. The bridal preparation room fell silent as I walked in. My mother's face contorted with dismay when she saw me. Rather than looking diminished by the loss of my hair, I carried myself with newfound confidence. The stylish cut framed my face beautifully, drawing attention to my eyes and cheekbones. "You were supposed to look plain," my mother hissed under her breath as she approached me. "What have you done?" I simply smiled. "I fixed what you broke," I replied softly. "Isn't that what strong women do?" Brittany stormed over, still in her robe, hair half styled. "You are unbelievable," she spat. "You will do anything to steal attention, won't you? Now you have made that horrible haircut into some kind of fashion statement." The other bridesmaids, Lauren and Emily, stared at us in confusion. "What happened to your hair?" Lauren asked me. "I thought it was long." Before I could answer, Brittany interrupted. "She cut it to try something new, for my wedding, without asking me first." I turned to face Lauren and Emily directly. "Actually, my parents cut it off while I was asleep last night. They thought I would look too pretty compared to Brittany otherwise." Their jaws dropped in synchrony. "Are you serious?" Emily gasped, looking from me to my mother, who had gone pale. "She is exaggerating," my mother said quickly. "We just trimmed it a little while she was sleeping because she would not listen to reason about upstaging the bride." Lauren's eyes widened further. "You cut her hair without permission, while she was unconscious." Brittany grabbed my arm, her nails digging into my skin. "Shut up right now," she whispered furiously. "You are ruining everything." I gently but firmly removed her hand. "I am not the one who ruined things," I said calmly. "I am here, I am fulfilling my bridesmaid duties, and I am going to support you on your wedding day. That is more than I owe you after what happened, but I am doing it anyway." The wedding photographer chose that moment to arrive, cheerfully oblivious to the tension in the room. "Time for some getting ready shots, ladies," she announced, setting up her equipment. I positioned myself carefully for each photo, ensuring my new hairstyle was clearly documented. When the photographer commented on how photogenic my new cut was, my mother tried to redirect the attention to Brittany, who was becoming increasingly agitated. As we were finishing the hair and makeup sessions, Daniel arrived to deliver a gift to Brittany before the ceremony. His eyes widened when he saw me. "Stephanie, what happened to your hair?" he asked, genuinely surprised. Before anyone could stop me, I told him the simple truth. My parents cut it off while I was sleeping last night. They were worried I would look too pretty at the wedding. Daniel's expression shifted from confusion to disgust as he looked at my parents and Brittany. "Is that true?" he asked them directly. My father stepped forward, attempting to defuse the situation. "It was just a practical joke that got out of hand," he claimed, forcing a laugh. "No harm done. She looks fine." "A practical joke," Daniel repeated slowly. "You violated her while she was asleep as a joke." Brittany quickly jumped in, tears already forming. "Daniel, please. It is our wedding day. Can we focus on us?" Daniel looked deeply troubled, but nodded stiffly. "We will discuss this later," he said, his voice tight. He handed Brittany her gift, a small jewelry box she opened with trembling fingers. The wedding planner, Melissa, entered to announce it was time to get into dresses. She pulled me aside as the others bustled about. "Is everything okay?" she asked quietly. "There is a lot of tension in here." I gave her a brief version of events. Her professionalism did not fully mask her shock. "That is absolutely horrific," she whispered. "Let me know if you need anything. I can adjust the schedule if you need a break." I thanked her, touched by the unexpected support. My phone buzzed with encouraging texts from Aunt Eleanor and Natalie, bolstering my spirits further. As final preparations were underway, I overheard Daniel confronting Brittany in a corner of the room. "Did you know they were going to do that to her?" he demanded, voice low but intense. "It was not my idea," Brittany responded defensively. "But she always has to be the center of attention. For once I deserve to be the pretty one." Daniel stepped back, looking at his bride with new eyes. "I do not even recognize you right now," he said. "The woman I proposed to would never condone something so cruel." "Oh, grow up," Brittany snapped. "It is just hair. Stop making such a big deal about it." I moved away, not wanting to eavesdrop further, but the damage was clearly done. Daniel walked out visibly shaken, and Brittany dissolved into tears, blaming me once again for ruining her perfect day. As we lined up for the processional, I felt strangely calm. The worst had already happened, and I had survived. Whatever came next, I would face it with the same dignity and strength. The ceremony began with traditional pomp and circumstance. As I walked down the aisle ahead of the bride, I could hear whispers from the assembled guests, clearly noticing my dramatic hair change. I held my head high, focusing on the altar, where Daniel stood looking uncomfortable in his tuxedo. When Brittany made her entrance on our father's arm, all eyes turned to her as they should for any bride. She did look beautiful in her elaborate gown, though her expression was tense rather than joyful. As she took her place beside Daniel, I noticed him standing slightly apart from her, maintaining a few inches of space between them. Throughout the vows, Daniel seemed to be going through the motions, his responses mechanical. Several times his eyes drifted to me, not with attraction but with something like concern or apology. Brittany noticed too, her grip on her bouquet tightening until her knuckles turned white. When the ceremony concluded, we moved to the garden for photographs. The photographer positioned us in various groupings, and I complied politely with each instruction. My parents kept trying to place me in the back row or behind taller relatives, but the photographer repeatedly moved me forward, commenting on how my striking new look complemented the wedding colors. At the reception, I was seated at the family table directly across from my parents. The tension was palpable, as guests mingled around us, oblivious to the undercurrents of hostility. My father rose to give his speech, champagne flute in hand. "Today is the culmination of everything we have hoped for, our beautiful daughter." He began, his voice thick with emotion. "Brittany has always been our joy, our pride, the child who filled our hearts with love from the moment she was born." He continued for several minutes, praising Brittany's accomplishments, personality, and beauty. Not once did he mention my existence, despite ostensibly addressing his family. It was as if I were invisible, a ghost at the table. As he sat down to applause, my Uncle Thomas approached our table. He hugged me warmly, then stepped back with a puzzled expression. "Stephanie, your hair," he exclaimed loudly enough for nearby tables to hear. "Last time I saw you at Christmas it was down to your waist. What happened?" I took a deep breath and replied clearly, making direct eye contact with my parents. "Mom and Dad cut it off while I was asleep last night. They were worried I would look too pretty and take attention away from Brittany." A shocked silence fell over our corner of the reception. My uncle looked from me to my parents in disbelief. "That cannot be true," he said finally. "Martha, Richard, tell me that is not true." My mother attempted to laugh it off. "Stephanie has always had a flair for drama," she said dismissively. "We just suggested a trim, and things got a bit out of hand. She is making it sound much worse than it was." I pulled out my phone and showed my uncle photos of the hair in the trash can and my initial butchered appearance before the salon visit. "They came into my room while I was sleeping and cut off my hair without my knowledge or consent," I stated calmly. "These are the facts." My mother stood abruptly, grabbing my arm. "Stephanie, that is enough. You are making a scene at your sister's wedding." "I am simply answering Uncle Thomas's question. Honestly," I replied loud enough for nearby guests to hear. "I did not bring this up," he asked. "Should I have lied?" By now, several guests were openly watching our exchange. My father's face had turned an alarming shade of red, while my mother's smile had frozen in place. As the uncomfortable moment stretched, a group of women approached our table. I recognized them as Brittany's college friends. "Stephanie," one of them said tentatively. "I am Allison. We met briefly at the engagement party." I smiled politely, expecting more awkwardness. "We just wanted to say how sorry we are about what happened to your hair," she continued, surprising me. "And well, we thought you should know that Brittany has been saying some really awful things about you for years." My mother tried to intervene, but Allison pressed on. "She told everyone at college that you were mentally unstable, that you were jealous of her, and tried to sabotage her relationships. She even claimed you had stolen money from your parents." I felt a strange sense of validation hearing this. For years I had wondered why extended family and mutual acquaintances had seemed so cold toward me. Now it made sense. As this drama unfolded at our table, I noticed Daniel standing alone by the bar watching us intently. When our eyes met, he approached slowly. "Can we talk?" he asked quietly. "Somewhere private." We stepped onto a deserted patio, the sounds of the reception muffled behind us. "I had no idea," he began, running a hand through his hair, "about any of this. The way they treat you, the things Brittany has said, and what they did to your hair. I cannot believe anyone could do that to another person, let alone their own daughter." I nodded, not trusting myself to speak. "I have been having doubts for months," he admitted. "Things did not add up. The way she talked about you contradicted everything I observed when we actually met. And now this. I do not think I can go through with this marriage." I placed a hand on his arm. "This is not a decision to make impulsively," I advised, surprised by my own composure. "Whatever you decide, make sure it is what you truly want." He looked at me with newfound respect. "How are you so centered after everything they have done to you?" Before I could answer, the DJ announced it was time for the bouquet toss. Reluctantly, we returned to the reception. "All the single ladies to the dance floor," the DJ called cheerfully. I deliberately stood to the side, having no desire to participate, but Brittany marched over and grabbed my wrist. "Everyone participates," she hissed. "I will not have people saying I excluded my own sister." Trapped, I joined the group of women. Brittany stood on a chair, her back to us, bouquet raised. At the last moment, she turned slightly and threw it directly at my face. The heavy arrangement hit me with surprising force, splitting my lip. Gasps rose from the crowd as I stumbled backward, a hand to my bleeding mouth. It was so clearly deliberate that even Brittany's most loyal defenders looked uncomfortable. That was the final straw. As my parents rushed to Brittany's side, fussing over her distress at ruining her perfect moment, something broke inside me. Years of suppressed pain and anger crystallized into absolute clarity. I walked to the center of the dance floor, blood still on my lip, and spoke in a clear voice that carried throughout the venue. "I have something to say," I announced. "To everyone who has wondered why I suddenly have short hair today, my parents broke into my room last night while I was sleeping and cut off all my hair because they were afraid I would look prettier than Brittany at her wedding. This was not the first time they have hurt me, but it will be the last." The room fell completely silent as I continued laying bare the years of favoritism, gaslighting, and emotional abuse. I spoke without rancor, simply stating facts that could no longer be denied. When I finished, I looked directly at my stunned parents. "I forgive you because holding on to this pain only hurts me. But forgiveness does not mean allowing the abuse to continue. Goodbye." With that, I walked calmly out of the reception, head held high, leaving chaos in my wake. I left the wedding venue with a strange sense of lightness, as though setting down a burden I had carried for decades. To my surprise, I was not alone. Several guests followed me out, offering support rides and even places to stay. I declined politely, having already arranged to meet Natalie at a nearby bar. Word spread quickly, and soon the bar was filled with wedding guests who had left the reception in solidarity. Even Lauren and Emily, the other bridesmaids, joined us, still wearing their mauve dresses and full of apologies for not realizing what was happening. I did not intend to break up the wedding, I told them honestly. I just could not stay silent anymore. Nobody blames you, Lauren assured me. What they did was assault. They should be ashamed, not you. Around 9 that evening, Daniel walked in still in his tuxedo, but with the tie removed and collar unbuttoned. He spotted our group and approached hesitantly. "May I join you?" he asked, directing the question to me. I nodded, making space beside me. "Of course. But should you not be at your reception?" He shook his head grimly. "I told Brittany I needed time to think. After your speech, and seeing how her parents reacted, just defending themselves, and never once showing concern for you. I cannot be part of that family." While we talked, Natalie had been busy implementing the next phase of our plan. She had compiled all the evidence I had gathered, including security camera footage from my parents' home, showing them entering my room with scissors, childhood photos, illustrating the pattern of favoritism, and screenshots of texts, revealing their true nature. This content was uploaded to a private social media account I had created specifically for this purpose, viewable only by people directly connected to my family and the wedding. I did not want public humiliation, just accountability within our community. The impact was immediate. My phone began buzzing with notifications as mutual friends, family members, and acquaintances viewed the evidence. Some expressed shock and outrage. Others admitted they had suspected something was wrong for years but had believed Brittany's version of events. My parents' calls and texts evolved from threatening to cut me off financially laughable since they had never supported me to demanding I remove the posts to finally pleading for discretion for the sake of the family. Meanwhile, the consequences of their actions continued to unfold. Daniel announced he was postponing the honeymoon to reconsider the marriage. My mother's bridge club, where she had always flaunted her perfect family image, saw the evidence, and many members distanced themselves from her. My father's colleagues at work, who had viewed my posts through mutual connections, regarded him differently, no longer seeing him as the upstanding family man he pretended to be. Most surprisingly, my boss Laura called the day after the wedding. I had taken Monday off to recover, but she had already heard about the incident through a mutual acquaintance. "I am appalled by what happened to you," she said, "and frankly impressed by how you handled it. We have been considering you for the creative director position, and this confirms you have exactly the grace under pressure we need. The job is yours if you want it." The promotion I had been working toward for 2 years accelerated by my show of strength rather than hindered by family drama. The irony was not lost on me. Aunt Eleanor arrived in town on Monday, insisting on helping me process everything. We spent hours talking through my childhood, identifying patterns I had normalized, and boundaries I needed to establish. That evening, my parents attempted to visit my apartment. The doorman, who had seen the photos of my butchered hair and heard the story, refused to let them up without my permission. I declined to grant it. "I am not ready to speak with them," I told Eleanor as we shared dinner. "Maybe someday, but not now. They need to understand there are consequences for treating people this way." She squeezed my hand supportively. "You do not owe them forgiveness or access to your life. That must be earned." In the days that followed, the ripple effects continued. Family friends, who had always been cold to me believing Brittany's lies, reached out with apologies. Distant relatives called to check on me and share their own stories of difficult family dynamics. My new pixie cut, born of violence and betrayal, became something of a signature style for me. Strangers complimented it, and a few colleagues even copied it. What was meant to diminish me had instead become a symbol of my resilience. A local lifestyle blog that had covered Brittany's wedding reached out wanting to interview me about toxic family dynamics and standing up for oneself. I declined initially, uncomfortable with public exposure, but eventually agreed to speak anonymously, hoping my experience might help others. That interview connected me with a support group for survivors of family trauma. For the first time, I found people who truly understood the complex emotions I had navigated my entire life. The validation was healing in ways I had not anticipated. 2 weeks after the wedding, Daniel called to tell me he had filed for annulment. The legal process would take time, but he was certain of his decision. "I hope we can remain friends," he said cautiously. "I value your perspective and your strength." I appreciated his words, but maintained appropriate boundaries. "I think space is important right now," I told him, "for both of us to heal and move forward independently." My parents continued their attempts at reconciliation, each approach revealing more about their true motivations. They worried about their social standing, about what people would think. Not once did they genuinely acknowledge the pain they had caused or take responsibility for their actions. I remained firm in my boundaries. This was not about punishing them, but about protecting myself from further harm. For the first time in my life, I was putting my own well-being first, without guilt or hesitation. And in that choice, I found a freedom I had never known before. 6 months passed, and with them came profound changes in my life. My hair had grown into a stylish bob that framed my face perfectly. What had begun as an act of cruelty had led me to discover a look that truly suited me better than my long locks ever had. It was lighter, more professional, and somehow more authentically me. My career had flourished with the new creative director position. The confidence I had found through standing up to my family translated into more assertive leadership at work. I was no longer the person who shrank from conflict to keep peace at any cost. The most significant changes, however, were internal. Weekly therapy sessions had helped me process not just the wedding incident, but the lifetime of subtle and overt emotional abuse that preceded it. I learned to identify toxic patterns, to set and maintain healthy boundaries, and to trust my own perceptions when others attempted to gaslight me. I had established firm boundaries with my family. After 3 months of no contact, I agreed to meet my parents in a public place with Aunt Eleanor present. The conversation was difficult but necessary. "What you did was assault," I told them calmly. "It was a violation of my body and my trust. I cannot move forward without acknowledgement of that fact." My mother had cried, my father had blustered, but eventually, faced with the loss of relationship with their daughter and their increasingly isolated social position, they had begun the painful process of recognizing their behavior. We attended family counseling together, a neutral third party helping to navigate the complex dynamics. Progress was slow and uneven. Some sessions ended in tears or angry departures. But slowly, incrementally, change began to take root. Brittany had her own journey of self-reflection after Daniel went through with the annulment. Initially, she had blamed me entirely, but as months passed and she engaged in her own therapy, she began to see how our parents had pitted us against each other from childhood. We were both victims of their dysfunction, though we had responded in different ways. Our relationship remained distant, but was evolving towards something resembling mutual respect. We would never be close, but perhaps we could eventually be civil. I found myself speaking regularly at the support group for family trauma survivors. My story resonated with many, and helping others navigate similar situations gave purpose to my pain. "Your experience is not what defines you," I would tell them. "It is how you respond to it, how you reclaim your power and your voice." I had built a new circle of friends who valued and supported me. People who celebrated my successes without jealousy and offered comfort during struggles without judgment. I had learned to recognize the difference between authentic relationships and conditional ones. Daniel and I maintained a careful friendship. We occasionally met for coffee, both healing separately from the wedding disaster and the relationships that had brought us there. He had started dating someone new, and I was genuinely happy for him. Aunt Eleanor had moved closer to me, strengthening our bond. She had always been my champion, and now she was my chosen family in a more present way. We had Sunday dinners together each week, building the kind of loving family relationship I had always craved. My professional success had expanded beyond my promotion. I had developed a personal brand centered on authenticity and resilience, qualities that resonated in the marketing world. Clients sought me out, specifically appreciating my fresh perspective and honest approach. Through this journey, I had learned crucial lessons that would guide me for the rest of my life. I learned to identify and avoid toxic relationships, to trust my instincts when something felt wrong. I learned that forgiveness does not mean forgetting or allowing harmful behavior to continue. It means releasing yourself from the burden of anger, while maintaining necessary boundaries. I discovered that true growth often comes through adversity, that our most painful experiences can become the source of our greatest strength if we process them in healthy ways. I realized that appearance is temporary, but self-worth is permanent, that my value never depended on my hair or my face, but on my character and actions. Most importantly, I found peace in being authentic rather than seeking approval. The exhausting performance of trying to be small enough, quiet enough, or plain enough to accommodate others' insecurities had ended. In its place was the liberation of simply being myself, without apology or explanation. My journey from victim to advocate had transformed not just my life but the lives of those around me. By standing in my truth, I had created ripples that extended far beyond my immediate circle. Family relationships are complex, often laden with unspoken expectations and deep-rooted patterns, but they should never become prisons that diminish our spirit or weapons that wound our soul. Sometimes the most loving thing we can do for both ourselves and our family is to break destructive cycles, even when that breaking is painful. I no longer define family solely by blood. My chosen family, the people who lift me up rather than cut me down, are equally valid and valuable. We create the relationships we deserve through boundaries, communication, and mutual respect. As I reflect on this journey, I am filled with gratitude for the unexpected gifts that came from that terrible morning when I woke to find my hair gone. In trying to diminish me, my family inadvertently set me free. Have you ever had to stand up to family members who tried to dim your light? How did you handle it? Please share your experiences in the comments below. If this story resonated with you, please hit the like button and subscribe to hear more stories of resilience and healing. Remember that you deserve to shine brightly without dimming yourself for anyone else's comfort. Thank you for listening to my story, and may you find the courage to write your own on your terms.